questions, you'll get about 30 seconds for follow-ups. Ozzy will be keeping time. He will unmute himself and let you know when you have 30 seconds left, and then say time when your time is up. After we're done with the prepared questions, you'll have 1 minute for closing remarks.
Okay.
All right, so I think we are streaming now. So thank you again for joining us, Brent. And let me turn it over to the first member of Squid who will be asking the first question. That is Jonathan.
Good evening, Brent.
Good.
We just celebrated Earth Day. The most recent IPCC report said that the future we fear is not inevitable if we act fast. But New York State has done nothing for the last 3 years. Where do you stand on the Build Public Renewable Act and the All Electric Buildings Act? And making it more local, do you believe, and making it more local, do you think we should stop the Van Wyck Expressway expansion and instead build more and better public transit alternatives? And do you support funding an environmental impact statement for the Queenslink, which will extend the M train south from Rego Park to the Rockaways, roughly parallel to the Van Wyck?
Okay. Thank you very much. As we said on Earth Day, we're hopeful that we haven't passed the tipping point yet. So, I mean, we all know that our Earth is in danger and we have to act as quickly as possible, because I don't even think we're prepared to say that we can stop this crisis coming. So, I mean, I'm going to be doing everything in my power to change us to a green society. And that's going to be not only changing to renewables, but also I think we need public ownership. Right now, we have private ownership of a number of our plants. So we'll be changing from fossil fuels. I'd like to see solar neighborhoods. I have a number of ideas. But yes, I'd be against those expansions. We have to have a good green public transportation system. And that's going to entail a lot of things. But of course, it costs money. And that's where I'm going to come in with fighting for funding. I think I have the right background to get it done. And I'm dedicated to making sure that it happens. So I'm happy to work with you on those bills that you mentioned. And yep, you have an ally in me on moving to a green society.
Thank you.
And my apologies, we skipped right to the first question right before you got to your opening remarks. So let me give you a minute to give some opening remarks.
Sure. I'm Brent O'Leary, running for 37. And basically, it's part of the American story. My grandparents are immigrants. They came here with nothing. They started in Hell's Kitchen and ended up in Sunnyside, which is where my father grew up. My dad was a ticket teller at the racetrack for 40 years and a member of Local 3 Electricians. I was born in Jackson Heights, the most diverse place in the world. Went to public schools. Then I was lucky enough to have financial aid, so I was able to go to college. Then I went to Japan and taught English for a year.
30 seconds.
Oh, then I came back here, again, went to law school on financial aid, had a good career, and that's why I want to give back and make sure that everybody has the same opportunities that I have. So I'm fighting to make sure that we all have the resources to empower ourselves and a good social safety net to make sure everyone's protected in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. The next question will come from Sumali.
Hi, Brent. Welcome.
Hi.
So my question is regarding the recent budget. What are your thoughts of the budget? And a couple of questions on do you support the Invest in Our New York proposal to tax the rich? And then if there was a tax bill that was missing, what would you want to include?
Okay. Yes, and of course, always the fight is money. We need more of it, and as we know, the people who make the most and benefit the most are not paying their fair share. So I've always been a progressive. I've always believed in progressive taxation. So pushing for the Pierre de Terres tax, I can never say that correctly. Pushing for the capital gains tax, pushing for an inheritance tax, a wealth tax. I believe that if America is anything, it means that everybody has equality of opportunity, and that includes no matter what economic status you come from. So I think the wealthy should be happy that they got where they are and can contribute to make sure that everybody has those chances. So, I mean, I think the inheritance tax is probably the biggest one and the most money that we can get. And you're not even taxing anybody because, they've already died. So, they made the money, but they're gone. So instead of giving it to their inheritors who have never done anything to deserve that money, it should go back into the system which helped them. I'll be looking for a number of ways to raise revenues because I believe there's a lot of things that are underfunded, which I'll get to my priorities.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
The next question comes from Ozzy.
Hey, Brent. Thank you for
Hey,
joining
Andy.
us tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for all your work.
Sure. So this question is about the criminal legal system. Final budget in Albany included rollbacks in New York's landmark 2019 bail reforms, along with other criminal justice reforms that took years to pass. Do you agree with these rollbacks? Why and why not? And do you support clean slate, fair and clean slate? I think just made it out of committee today in the Senate. Fair and timely parole and elder parole bills. And then how would you address concerns of rising crime?
Sure. I've always been against cash bail. There's no reason why somebody should be in jail based on whether they can pay or not. Also, I do believe in, a clean slate. Once you've been in jail and come out, I don't think, employers or anybody else should be able to hold that against you. And then, yes, if you've been in jail for a number of years, elderly people, I think, they have to review those cases to see if, that you should be given a second chance. We all make mistakes, especially when we're younger. So I would like to see that. Now, New York is one of the only states that doesn't allow you to be kept in for being a danger to society. And I do think that there are some people, I don't think like Charles Manson, after what he did, should have been awaiting trial, should have been let out for it. So I do think that it's up to the state to come up with fair criteria to determine, if you're a repeat violent offender, if you're, have committed hate crimes. I do think that you should be kept in jail before trial, but we must make sure you have a speedy trial.
Thanks, Brent. I just want to clarify quickly. Somebody like Charles Manson would not be eligible.
Well, it wasn't committed here. It was in California. So basically, someone who's like a hate crime person, someone who we know is a danger to society, we have to give them a quick trial so they're not held in there for too long. But there are some people that we shouldn't be letting back out before trial just because they could be hurting people.
Thank you.
Right. The next question will come from Anicia.
Good evening, Brett, and thank you for participating in our forum. There's a lot of complaints about homeless humans in public spaces, and a lot of complaints about how this major administration has been cleared hundreds of homeless encampments, but placing very few of those people in homeless shelters. This doesn't seem like a humane approach or an effective one. How do you think we should address the homeless issue?
Sure, that's a really important question. And I believe that everybody must be able to live with dignity. The homeless problem usually has the three main factors, and that's, mental health, drug addiction, and jobs. So, I'm going to address those three issues separately, making sure that we have mental health care and mental health facilities for anybody who has those difficulties, making sure that there are enough drug addiction centers. My brother died from a heroin overdose, so I'm very familiar with the programs and the sponsorships that they have there. And then jobs. We do have working poor and high rents, so we're going to make sure that there are enough quality jobs that people who are able to work can put a roof over their head. So I'm going to be working to make sure that we have the right facilities so that people can have a safe place to stay. And I do have a big affordable housing program based on Mitchell Lama and Community Land Trust and other things to try to get the price of housing down, which is sort of the other end of that problem. But it's a serious issue, and one that we is very. You'll see it on our website, and it's one we're taking very seriously and trying to address.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anicia. The next question is on education, and it comes from Jimena.
Hello, Brent. Thank you for joining us tonight. Education has become a divisive issue among parent communities throughout the city. We're hearing and reading more and more about parents' overall frustration with the entire education system. What is your vision of education equity in these debates? For example, do you favor repealing the Hecht-Calandra Act of 1971, which made admission to elite specialized high schools depend only on a single high stakes test? Why or why not?
Sure. This is a big issue for us. And we want a quality school that everybody, that in every neighborhood. So I've rallied on a number of times for smaller class sizes. It's the one thing that's been shown to be the most effective in a child's learning. So I'm going to be pushing to build more schools and to have more teachers and more teachers' aides so that we can bring down class sizes. I don't believe that the admission should be based on that one high test score. Besides the anxiety, I went through it a number of times, but also how important it is. As you know, I was a public school kid. I got to go to follow my education on financial aid. I know that education is what opened up the whole world to me. I ended up as a lawyer in Tokyo for 10 years. Like, how often does a kid from Jackson Heights end up being a business attorney in Japan? So I really, I'm an FDR Democrat. I believe it's giving people the tools to empower themselves and making sure the social safety net is there. And the tools is good jobs and good education. So yes, I will fight to make sure that there's a holistic approach. And I do want honors and basic and different levels of classes in each school. I was very strange. I was in mostly regular, but I was in also an honors and a basic class. So, you know, people learn in different ways. So I want in each school there to be different levels where people can go to their level. Sorry, didn't mean to go over.
You're good, Brent.
Thank you. You've pretty much answered, because as a follow-up, I was going to ask how you envision desegregating the public school system beyond just the admissions process.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. The next question will come from Allison.
Hi. Hello. Good evening.
Hi, Alice.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I want to know, how do you envision your role in the legislature would be, and how would you push an issue that the governor or a leader doesn't support, and how will you address the needs of your constituents?
And number one, I don't think my constituent service will be questioned if people know my community service for the last 10 years. So basically, I've run the Hunters Point Civic. I've had monthly meetings bringing the neighborhood together with elected officials and government agencies and demanding that they be responsive to our needs. I'm president of the board of Woodside on the Move, making sure that all after-school programs are in the schools and housing rights advocacy. And during COVID, I started the emergency food pantries, and for 2 years, we fed 200,000 people. So I am as grassroots as it gets. I am on the ground. For Albany, I know it's accessible, but I am ready to work, and I will work with whoever I need to. Governor and all the other elected officials, you have to come to a consensus to get people's problems solved. So my background is as a business lawyer. So it's my forte is law, negotiation, and finance. So I think those are good skills to have up in Albany, because you have to negotiate, know how to deal with people.
30 seconds.
I've negotiated in Japanese against many of the great negotiators in this world, and I've come out okay. And I know how to make law, and I know how to get along with people. So I think that's it. So I'm sure I'm going to disagree with the governor and many of my colleagues, but we're going to have to put aside our differences and see what is the best thing we can do to solve our community's problems.
Okay, thank you.
And our last question is going to come from Maria.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, Brett. Nice to see you again.
So,
Welcome. Thank you for being here. So my question, it's a four-part question, but all together. It's how much money has your campaign raised?
Hmm.
Have you accepted any corporate contributions? Do you pledge not to accept contributions from real estate, health insurance, fossil fuel companies, or police unions? And why or why not?
okay. Yep. So far, we've raised $75,000. We think this race is going to take about 150. Some people say 150 to 200, but we're right on par for that. I've only accepted money from individual people and then one local restaurant. So the one business did a local restaurant, a Cuban grill in town. As you know, in my city council race, I refused all money from real estate. I refused all money from police unions. And so we're going to continue on that way. I don't want to be beholden to any special interest. So I really believe that only natural people should be able to contribute, same as voting. I don't see why a company would have the same rights as a human being to be able to contribute to a political campaign. And I would very happily propose legislation making sure that only natural people would be able to contribute. Did I get all those? The last question was 4 parts. Okay.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
All right.
I think he's good.
Thank you. So we have a couple minutes left, so let me give you 2 minutes for closing remarks.
Okay, sure. And that's what I said. My basic philosophy is still, FDR Democrat. It is basically, I'm not there to tell everybody how to live their lives. I'm here to empower them. They know best what's best for them, and the community knows what's best. So I'm going to be the advocate for the neighborhood, finding out what issues they have and advocating. So quality jobs and quality schools, I believe those are the best tools to give to people to help themselves, and then make sure that safety net is there. So I'm an advocate for universal health care. I want the New York Health Act passed. I don't believe any caring society should not have that, and I don't understand why we don't. I had some issues with my father when he was passing, and a fight with a big insurance company over them not paying. And then taking care of our elderly. I'm glad that was endorsed by the 504 Democrats, which are Democrats with disabilities. And it's part of my basic philosophy that everybody has to be able to live with dignity. I'm proud of my community service. So I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. Anybody who's seen what I've done for the last 10 years knows that this is real. So I believe a person should be committed, caring, and capable. I think I have those tools, and I'm at the end of my career, so I was lucky. So now it's just giving back to the neighborhood, which really gave me all my chances. So I really appreciate all the work you do, and hopefully we can work together to make people's lives better. It's just that simple. But thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all your work, and good to seeing a lot of you I haven't seen for a while.
So Raj,
Thank
we
you.
have like 2 minutes. I got a couple of texts from folks that are in the audience. Can I ask the follow-up question?
Sure, we have a couple minutes. Go ahead.
Great. So Brent, I got a text about 2 texts about the bail reform, which we know is a hot topic. You mentioned hate crimes. What specifically do you think judges don't have discretion for right now to be able to hold folks, or even if it's a different kind of even if it's a different kind of remand, right, where they supervise release?
Yeah, my understanding is that judges do not have the power to consider dangerousness as part of having bail or not. So I mean, I don't want bail. I mean, it's nothing to do with money. But yeah, most states actually allow judges to consider the criteria of dangerousness when determining whether to post bail or not. So, I mean, I don't want bail posted, but I think, if you have someone who's, repeatedly beating their partner, there's been an order of protection and they keep going out. I mean, that's not someone who's, got the privilege of doing that. And, if you've set up the date and they just don't show up to court, it's kind of like you can't keep arresting the person and letting them out. So I do want a speedy trial. I don't want people held in jail long. So we got to give more funding to our judicial system to make sure that they can have a speedy trial. But yeah, they're just, it's some people are a danger to society, and we have to be realistic about that.
Thank you, Brent. And we're still waiting for our next candidate. If now you're saying in terms of domestic violence, is that something right now that a judge can't hold someone for? Because you
Yeah,
mentioned
because it would be I got to check all the criteria, but I mean, what I saw was 49 of the 50 states, except us, are allowed to consider whether the person is a danger to society or not.
got it.
Thank you so much for being with us, Brent. We appreciate your time and your thorough answers. We look forward to hearing more from you.
Excellent. Thank you. I know this is a volunteer activity, so I appreciate all the time that you give up to try to make our government work. And so peace and thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the night.
Have a good night.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Have we admitted the next candidate? We've admitted.
Yeah, Juan is here.
Okay.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, good evening, Juan. How are you?
Good. Good evening. Happy Monday. It is Monday.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
So I'm Sumali, and I'm the moderator for this portion of the forum. Welcome. Thank you for your time and spending time with us. I'm going to review the format for tonight. So you're going to be given 2 minutes to do an introduction, and then we will follow with we have prepared questions that are going to be asked by our SQUID members. And then you will have 90 seconds to answer the questions. And if there is a follow-up, there'll be 30 seconds for follow-up questions. Ozzy is our timekeeper tonight, and he will come on and let you know that you have 30 seconds left. And then he will also call time when your time is up. After the formal questions, you'll have 1 minute for closing remarks.
Sounds good.
All right, great. So the floor is yours, 2 minutes.
All right. Thank you for having me. Good to see some familiar faces. Thank you so much for taking the time for allowing me to be in your space. My name is Juan Ardilla. I'm running for State Assembly in Queens, representing Maspeth, Ridgewood, Sunnyside, Long Island City, and Woodside. Full disclosure, I actually grew up wanting to become a forensic scientist my entire life. That was my life aspiration. That was my goal. That was my dreams up until the age of 17. That's when my mother was faced with a threat of unjust deportation. And that's when I started thinking maybe immigration law was more my path. I had family in Central America that faced persecution and gang violence shortly after. So I made the decision that if you pursue immigration law as an attorney, you execute laws in place. But if you pursue public policy, you have the power to change laws. And I thought that was probably the best way to set people up for success in terms of giving them resources to succeed. So right after college, I started working for a council member. Well, at the time he was a council member Brad Lander, for a few years, where I learned about public policy making, constituent services, local government. I transitioned into the New York City DOE, where I did the pre-K for all, 3K for all, and pre-K dual language expansion programs throughout the city as we were rolling out universal early childhood education. And then I transitioned to a legal service nonprofit, where I help everyday New Yorkers with access to benefits and legal representation, such as cash assistance, Medicaid, SNAP, unemployment, SSD. And now we're doing the good fight. We want to make representation, we want to bring good quality representation and good constituent services, and give our own spin to what I think is the best way to move the district forward. So it's a privilege to be here, and looking forward to representing District 37.
Thank you for that. So our first question is going to be asked by Jonathan.
Hi, good evening. We just celebrated Earth Day. The most recent IPCC report said that the future we fear is not inevitable if we act fast. But New York State has done nothing for the last 3 years. Where do you stand on the Build Public Renewable Act and the All Electric Buildings Act? And making it more local, do you think we should stop the Van Wyck Expressway expansion and instead build more and better public transit alternatives? And do you support funding an environmental impact statement for the Queens Link, which would extend the M train south from Rego Park to the Rockaways, roughly parallel to the Van Wyck?
Yeah, so I definitely support funding the Queensway. I support a Green New Deal for New York because it taxes the rich over 10 billion a year to fund programs including energy efficiency, mass transit, renewable energy, union jobs, investment in working class communities and communities of colors. And I also made a public pledge to enforce state agencies to aggressively implement the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act and fully fund this transition with a $15 billion in the state budget to jumpstart a just transition for greenhouse gas reductions, requirement that 40% of funds be directly invested into disadvantaged communities, ending fossil fuel subsidies and investments in fossil fuel infrastructure. And also avoiding false sense solutions like waste to energy projects. I also want to take our resources to expand public transit access, not amplify car culture, which unfortunately is something that's been a dominating discourse, especially in the southern portion of my district, actually, where Maspeth, where lack access to public transit, good quality transit. So there's an over-reliance on cars and vehicles. So in order to move things forward, I think we have to think about creative solutions to reduce the usage of cars and also expand public transit for residents throughout my district, my community, and across the state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Our next question comes from Raj.
Evening, and thank you for joining us. It's kind of a multi-part question, but please answer it how you see fit. Generally, what did you think of the recent state budget? And then maybe more specifically, could you talk about your support for the Invest in Our New York proposal to raise tax on the very rich? And then finally, were there any other tax bills that you wish were in the final budget but weren't?
Yeah, I definitely support taxing the rich. I do support an ultra wealth tax. I also support something that hasn't been included and I think gets forgotten in the conversation, known as a land value tax, essentially a taxation on vacant land. And what this does is discourage speculative investments, but also encourages mixed use, affordable, socially responsible development to encourage more affordable housing, truly affordable housing in New York City. I support a tax on folks' second home for their vacation homes. And I also support ultra taxing billionaires, and I did not approve of the state budget. So fundamentally, I believe in a housing first model, which essentially means that you view housing as a human right. That's a philosophy, not a speculative investment. And I don't think this budget actually addresses that. We don't address housing as a human right, as a human commodity. And quite frankly, as a son of immigrants, as a son who faced the challenges that many immigrant New Yorkers face, any budget that displaces immigrant children from access to healthcare and services is a failure, is a fundamental failure. So there's a lot of things there that we can improve on. There's a lot of areas for growth that I want to be a champion for, to advocate for. But yeah, I do support taxing billionaires, and I do think this budget was a failure fundamentally in a lot of ways.
Thank you.
Right. Our next question is from Ozzy.
Hey, Juan, thank you for being here. So criminal legal system, Albany just rolled back, sorry, keeping time also. Albany just rolled back our 2019 landmark bail reforms, along with other criminal justice reforms. Do you approve of the rollbacks? Why or why not? In terms of bills, we're talking about parole justice. Do you support fair and timely parole, elderly parole, and then clean slate? And then how would you address concerns about rising crime? If you have 2 minutes for that.
Great. I definitely support clean slate. I support elderly parole. I do believe that we should be shifting focus from mass incarceration and focusing on addressing the root causes of crime, right? Because what I believe, there's about 5 reasons folks are committing crimes. And one is poverty, right? Lack of resources, lack of affordable housing, mental health issues, social services that aren't being supported. And not enough investments into our youth, which quite frankly, I don't think are currently being addressed in our current criminal justice system. In terms of the victories and the landmarks that we've made in the criminal justice reform, I don't support scaling those back. I believe in pushing it forward. And so that's why I wrote an op-ed, and which should be published within this week, discussing what our 5-point plan is when it comes to criminal justice. So number one is pushing for anti-gun violence policies, putting those initiatives in place, because we want to remove the flow of illegal guns in New York. We also want to support those that are struggling with mental health issues, making sure they get the services and resources needed to succeed and get back up on their feet, supporting social services as well, employment opportunities, making sure that we are investing into our youth, because I think they're the most vulnerable populations. And there's a lot of things we can do from that. That stretches down from programs such as early childhood education, such as pre-K and 3K, right? You're looking at studies that show that for every dollar invested into early childhood, there's a $17 return to society and a massive decrease in incarceration rates. And then lastly, addressing homelessness, right? Pushing for tenant protection measures to reduce homeless populations, legalizing accessory dwelling units, the ability to expand or to rent out your basement, attic, garage in a way that's safe, stable, and dignified for tenants, and expanding housing vouchers and making sure ERAP is accessible to all New Yorkers. I don't know if I made it past the mark, but.
You're good. Time.
Thank you. You kind of helped us segue into the next question by Anicia.
Buenas noches, Juan.
Buenas noches, ¿cómo vas?
Okay. There is a lot of complaints about homelessness, humans, and public spaces. And a lot of complaints about this mayoral administration has been clearing 100 of homeless encampments, but placing very few of those people in homeless shelters. This doesn't seem like a humane approach or an effective one. How do you think we should address homelessness?
For sure. I think the number one philosophy it's a philosophy I think that has to change in New York in politics altogether, which is shifting into a housing first model, right? Viewing housing as a human right. So other cities have actually implemented this philosophy. You're looking at Salt Lake City in Utah, Columbus, Ohio. They made housing first their priority, and they reduced their homeless population by 90%, right? The goal is to ensure that people have access to a roof, that they have a roof over their heads, right? If you place people in housing, there is no homelessness. There's a reduction in the homeless population. So a couple of things that we can do in New York State, right? Having the political courage, the political will to really push for housing policies, aggressive housing policies and tenant protection measures. So one of the things that I think it's a big conversation that is good cause. So making sure that people are able to stay in their homes, especially when it comes to harassments from unscrupulous landlords and landlords that are violating tenants' protection and measures. The other thing that you want to do is legalize accessory dwelling units. The RPA estimates 100,000 new homes in New York City, which I think can mitigate a lot of the homeless crisis in New York, because you're expanding truly affordable housing, expanding housing vouchers for those that are struggling, making sure that we're properly funding our NYCHA developments, making sure they're getting the resources needed to succeed, making sure that we're advocating for them and providing the funding necessary. And more importantly, again, land value tax, right? Taxing a land value to ensure that we are amplifying and encouraging housing to be implemented, right? So these are all different measures that we can take. So I think there's a way to address homelessness.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, and now we turn to Jimena.
Buenas noches, Juan. Thank you for joining us. Education has become a divisive issue among parent communities throughout the city, and we're hearing and reading more and more about parents' overall frustrations with the entire education system. What is your vision of education equity in these debates? For example, do you favor repealing the Hecht-Calandra Act of 1971, which made admissions to the elite specialized high schools depend only on a single stakes test? Why or why not? And ultimately, how do you envision desegregation of the public school systems beyond the admissions process?
Yeah, I definitely think we need to abolish that process. I think students trying to shouldn't be judged based on one test. So definitely repealing that. And the other thing in terms of what we can do to expand integration is something that is what I believe to be pre-K dual language programs, right? So there's a couple of reasons for this. It supports children whose home language is other than English. It also supports monolingual English speakers get acclimated with different cultures, different languages. This is Queens, New York. We're in the most diverse place on the planet, right? Our classrooms should be very reflective of that diversity. And I think having our public schools access to those classrooms should be something that any family and children should have access to throughout all our spaces. So one of the things we can do is actually start from the early as 4, is expanding pre-K dual language classrooms, making sure all different cultures are together. We're learning different languages. There's so many benefits to it. There's a $17 return to society, a decrease in incarceration, an increase in job opportunity, more experience in the classroom, and people and children can transition into the upper grades while they're still learning the new language or their target language. So I think expanding early childhood dual language programs is a really strong way that we can combat segregation and also just amplify the beauty of our diversity and our culture within our birth.
Thank you.
And next we have Allison. Allison, you're still on mute.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Juan. I feel like we met before, so it's nice to see you again. Anyway, how do you envision or think of your role in the legislature? Also, how would you push to support an agenda that the governor may not support? And how will you address the needs of your constituents?
I think number one, addressing the needs of the constituents. That's what we're here to do. Making sure I'm accessible. That's what I tell everybody. It's look, I identify as a progressive Democrat 100%. And I think a lot of people within this district agree with my views and my policies. For people that maybe have different views, what I tell everybody is I'm always accessible. So having boots on the ground, right? Putting yourself out there, putting in constituent services. One of the things that I would love to push for is supporting people with access to benefits, providing them legal services, access to resources should they need public defense, making sure that we're pushing for policies that protect all New Yorkers across the state, that amplifies a just and equitable New York. So being very hands-on in the district, very present, very active. I'm extremely active in Maspeth and Ridgewood, which is where I'm born and raised. So I'm definitely someone that's always been active in my community. And I think in terms of what we can do in Albany, I think it's there's a lot of things we can do. Like I said, I identify as a progressive Democrat. There are some that identify a little bit more to the left and a contingency that are a little bit more to the right of me. So I think having the ability to work with different ends of the party to push for goals that can support everyday working class New Yorkers is the ultimate goal, because I believe we should be here for public service. If you are actually here for public service, I think we can do a lot of good, right? Whether you are more of a moderate to conservative Democrat, or if you're a little more on the left wing of the party.
Thank you so much.
All right, and lastly, we have Maria.
Hey, Juan, nice to see you. Welcome to Central Queens. So my question, it's a 4-part question, but you certainly, I think when you hear it, you know that you can sort of just answer it all together or break it up however you choose. So the questions are, how much money has your campaign raised? Have you accepted any corporate contributions? Do you pledge not to accept contributions from real estate, health insurance, fossil fuel companies, or police unions, and why or why not?
Cool. So we've raised over 50 grand. The goal is to raise $150,000 to $200,000, just because it's a crowded field, and we want to run a very robust campaign, something that touches and expands our message as far and wide to the universe. I do not accept contributions from any of the aforementioned entities. I actually stood in opposition to law enforcement unions in the last run. I supported a different complete agenda from all those entities. So I don't accept any of those I don't accept contributions from any of those people. And can you remind me again, what was the 4th question? Because I think I answered
it was just why or why not. And
why or why not? Okay.
It was already incorporated into your question, into your answer, I mean. Thanks.
Great. I don't think you used all your time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Now you have a minute for closing remarks.
Somali.
Oh.
So he has time left since he went pretty quick on some.
Yeah,
Can you give
no.
him 2 minutes for closing?
Sure. Why don't you make it 2 minutes?
Because we have our next candidate doesn't start just yet.
Yep. Go
So
ahead.
I get to ramble for 2 minutes. This is a dream come true. No. So thank you so much for having me. I won't take up the full 2 minutes, but I will make the case that we have a large base, a large contingency of support just on the south side of the district in Ridgewood and Maspeth. When, I mean that in both a qualitative sense, but also you can quantify that with nearly 2,000 votes that supported a progressive message, a progressive and inclusive message that specifically supported me and voted for me. So you're looking at a strong contingency of support. We also have the most endorsements out of anyone in this race. We have, I've been honored to have the endorsements of strong Latinx leaders such as Jessica Ramos, Catalina Cruz, Tiffany Caban, Jennifer Gutierrez, who overlaps in Ridgewood with me. We also had the former council speaker, Melissa Mark Viverito. Today, I rolled out Queensborough President Donovan Richards. And we also have a lot of organizational support. We have the support of the Working Families Party. We have the support of Make the Road Action, Churches United for Fair Housing. We also have support from labor unions, DC 37. We're rolling out more labor support later this week. We have more coming down, more elected support that we're rolling out. So we have a good contingency of support. This is a district that votes strongly for the WFP candidate, which is, I'm proud to be the progressive candidate in my race. And the win number is 4,500. And with a 2,000 base, you're looking at a strong support system. We're almost halfway through, our win number, and we're just expanding the good message and extending the organizing work that we've done for so many years. So it's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to be running to represent these beautiful and diverse communities. And what I hope to do is bring a progressive message, an inclusive message to a district that's been starved from this kind of politics. So it's a privilege and an honor, and I'm looking forward to being there in June. Thank you.
Great, Juan. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and coming and answering, the questions on topics that are very important to the members of this club. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, everybody.
Great night.
You too.
Are we ready to admit Mr. Baldeo? Oh, okay.
He's here.
All right, good evening. Welcome, Mr. Baldeo, to our SQUIDS candidate forum. My name is Raj Corbin. I will be the moderator for this portion of the forum, and I'll go over our ground rules, and then we will jump into questions. So you will have 2 minutes for an introduction, after which we have a set of prepared questions. You will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. And if there's a follow-up question, you'll have 30 seconds. Ozzy will be keeping time. He will unmute himself and say 30 seconds when you have 30 seconds left, and then time when your time has finished. After the prepared questions are complete, you'll have 1 minute for a closing statement. So with that, welcome again, and let me turn it over to you for your 2-minute introduction.
Well, welcome and good evening, everyone. And I thank you and compliment you for the work you've been doing on behalf of our communities and your own, and the wider cause of mankind. I was drawn into public service, especially politics, because that's where it begins and that's where the solutions are found. As a father, neighbor, lawyer, and so on, in 2004, I ran because there was a bill piloted by Surf Maltese, a Republican county chair, that he wanted to legalize racial profiling. And he had the support of Vivian Cook, who was a very way up in the county organization, the Queens Democratic County Organization. And they were willing to have that done, whereby people looking like me and people who are not white would be legally profiled. Hence, we'd be creating 2 streams of people. One, the two classes of Americans based on skin color, and as you know, that's most American. So I ran for office then, and I've always found there are many underlying institutional problems that can often relate to where your community is, where your zip code is. And in Richmond Hill and Ozone Park, we found that that has always been the case. So that's how I got involved in politics. I've always been there fighting for the underdog. Many of the press places have called me the person best equipped to represent the underdog. I have been an immigration lawyer.
30
so I know
seconds.
exactly how they feel and how we're treated. And I want to make sure there's so many problems in healthcare, education, um, public safety, just about everything is taken is looked at and given a voice and voice for the underprivileged and the hopeless. And that is why I got into politics, and that is what I've continued to do. Sorry, and that is how we have to continue to work together to make a change and to have a voice and to give voice to those who are homeless and are voiceless.
Time.
Continues.
Thank you for that introduction. The first question will come from Jonathan.
Good evening, Albert.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Good. We just celebrated Earth Day. The most recent IPCC report said that the future we fear is not inevitable if we act fast. But New York State has done nothing for the last 3 years. Where do you stand on the Build Public Renewable Act and the All Electric Buildings Act? And making it more local, do you think we should stop the Van Wyck Expressway expansion and instead build more and better public transit alternatives? And in turn, do you support funding an environmental impact statement for the Queenslink, which would extend the M train south from Rego Park to the Rockaways, which will be roughly parallel to the Van Wyck?
Yes, I would support the proposals you have just mentioned. I have not seen the Van Wyck not being tendered. As a matter of fact, I've seen it for like decades. There's always something going on there. I don't know if that's someone's pet project or someone's way of ciphering public funds, but it has done little to ease the congestion or the or local businesses, volume of businesses in this area. So I agree with you that that should be supported. As a matter of fact, in my capacity as president of the American Asian Association, the largest in Richmond Hill and in Queens, the American Asian Labor Organization, I have publicly supported the Queenslink because I believe that that will not only bring the economy and increase it and improve it, but it'll also help with transportation needs and provide more affordable transportation. And it's very costly now if you have to use private transportation. If gas has gone up, it's very congested. It's I do believe that we need
30 seconds.
And these are areas of endeavor that I will certainly support and work with those organizations who are looking to have a more friendly environment and a freer and more safe alternative. I believe that the incumbents have just been supporting these things. They've taken campaign contributions from all of these places that do not want to have changes. And yes, we have to, I would support that.
Time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next question is from Somali. Go ahead, Somali.
Good evening, Mr. Badayo.
Good
What do you think of the recent budget? In your questionnaire, you said that you support the Invest in Our New York proposal to tax the rich. Which tax bill did you wish was in the final budget?
Well, I support any tax bill that is included to tax the rich. They're the ones who have to be taxed. They don't even feel it. They will not lose any sleep over it. Especially coming out of the COVID recovery, they've made their billions on our backs. And I think it's time for them to give back. And if they don't get met, they won't give back unless we tax them. And hence you have to tax the super rich coming, starting at that triangle where there's just 1% at the top. I believe it's my last research was like 3 or 4% or 5% of the people, the most richest people in our community. That's where they reside, at the top of the pyramid change, sucking the blood off of those like myself and many of you and others. I guess all of you, if we come to think of it. So therefore, we are in that situation where we have to make sure that there's economic equality, that there is, we can level the playing field to that extent of the give back. They don't give back, and Donald Trump, you saw how that plays out with him. So yes, I would support these measures, and I think there were many that were not put into the budget, and it should have more. But I imagine it's just a progressive.
30 seconds.
More progressives like myself, if we can get into the legislature we'll be able to form a voting bloc and be able to bring more tax solutions to the entire community by taxing the rich more.
Great, thank you.
All right. The next question comes from Ozzy on the criminal legal system.
Sorry, keeping time too. Hi, Albert. Thank you for being here. So 2019, New York State passed some really big bail reforms, and these were recently rolled back in the budget, along with some other criminal justice reforms that have taken a lot of time to pass. Do you agree with the rollbacks? Why or why not? In terms of Albany, there's also clean slate, which just passed in the Senate today, and it's out of committee. And there are the parole justice bills, which is elder parole and fair and timely parole. Do you support those three? And how would you address concerns of rising crime? Excuse me, 2 minutes.
I've become an expert, so to speak, by my life experiences. When the criminal justice system targets you, myself and people like, many young Black and brown men and minorities and people of color have been traded in the stock exchange, the prison stock exchange. And how do they do that? They bring in the crimes to make sure that the level of stock in prisons that are publicly traded and and cheap slave labor can continue under the guise of incarcerating people and making up these crimes. The parole system needs I think that people should be given a second chance. And I can tell you sitting here that although I beat my case, there's still that stigma, that scarlet letter that affects many young people who have been targeted by the justice system. And that's a shame. This is America, and yet we have the largest rate of incarcerations in the world. One of my reasons for running is to fight that system, to bring a voice to it, to expose it, to expose the horrible underbelly of America, where we talk about we're the greatest country in the world and justice and land of the free and home of the brave. It's not so. It is a very oppressive criminal justice system that makes sure that the stock in trade in prisons is at a certain level, at a new high, and always maintain that. So what we have is that these should be changed. You should have restorative justice. The bail reform should be used as a punitive. It's not like
30 seconds.
Sentence. It's only to make sure that you attend your trial. And statistics have shown that people do come back to attend a trial and they do not commit other crimes. So there is a misconception out there and a false narrative being peddled that people who are granted bail commit new crimes. That is not a reason for it. And as regards public safety, the two are not related. The people who want to make sure, the advocates on the other side who wants to push their agenda, try to make a tie into it. But it's not so.
All right. Thank you. The next question is related, comes from Anicia.
Good evening, Mr. Baldale.
Good evening.
There are a lot of complaints about homeless humans in public spaces, and a lot of complaints about how this mayoral administration has been clearing 100 of those homeless encampments, but placing very few of those people in homeless shelters. This doesn't seem like a humane approach or an effective one. How do you think we should address homelessness?
Well, homelessness, this is a human right. We all have the right to the safety of our homes and also to have a home. And unfortunately, we're criminalizing poverty and criminalizing misfortune. And especially after COVID, many people have lost their jobs. Many people have lost their livelihoods and their dreams and have become homeless. Nobody wants to be homeless, but there's no corresponding degree of sympathy or solutions being given to our fellow New Yorkers. And that is where we have failed the homeless people. Now, anyone can become homeless, and we have to look at it that tomorrow, any of us can become homeless. And people need to understand that in these times. and understand that we must have a safety valve or a social safety valve to make sure that we can help them. Now, they have some shelters which people are afraid to go into because there are lots of criminal elements within the shelters that actually rob people, and people don't want to go. So right now in my neighborhoods, there's many homeless people, and I grieve for them because they deserve better. We are a better country. A country is judged by the way it treats
30
its
seconds.
and immigrants and homeless folks and people who don't have a job are always being stigmatized and actually being treated in a different way, which is very un-American. So our solution is that we must bring more money to that. We have developers and say we're going to give so much people housing, but we do have a terrible housing crisis that filters down right to the homeless. So the whole system needs to be improved. We need to put more money for humanity, and we need to make ourselves a more decent place, because right now we're not looking very good, and we're smelling awfully stink by the way we treat the homeless folks in our communities and societies.
Thank you.
Thanks. The next question is on education, and it comes from Jimena.
Good evening, Albert. Thank you for joining us. Education has become a divisive issue among parent communities throughout the city. We're hearing and reading more and more about parents' overall frustrations of the entire education system. What is your vision of education equity in these debates? For example, do you favor repealing the Hecht-Calandra Act of 1971, which made admissions to the elite specialized high schools depend only on a single high-stakes test? Why or why not? And ultimately, how do you envision desegregation of the public school system beyond the admissions process?
I didn't get the last part, sorry.
Sure. How do you envision desegregation of the public school system beyond the admissions process?
Yes, let's be getting back to Guyana standards. I'm from Guyana initially, but I was born, and there was only one high school, and you had to either make it that day or you didn't get into the proper high school. Thankfully, or by luck or by stroke of luck, I was able to get in. Now, education must not be educational opportunities and the heights that someone can reach or should not be based on one single opportunity in life, whatever happens that day at 10-year-old. We must have a system that is open to all. We must have a system where every child who does not have the same equities or the same resources or the same opportunities as others should be able to flourish. And that may not happen at the same time, but it must depend on having equal opportunities for all, or being able to help those who have fallen back. And that is why I would support a system that is equitable and a system that is more meaningful. Thankfully, my son was able to get into a specialized high school, but we had to pay for him to get extra lessons. Now, not everyone could have afforded that. It was a great strain on us, but because we had to borrow money to do it. But we realized that was the only way. Why should a person's future be dependent on how much money they have or how much money they're able to put together at that point in time? We must have a system, that safety net that catches those and uplift them. Lift them up to get into schools, have more specialized high schools. He goes all the way into Brooklyn. And many other kids that go to the Bronx High School, and we don't have anything in Richmond Hill. We have failing schools, Richmond Hill High School and John Adams. So we need to have more education resources plowed back into the community for the taxes we have paid.
Time.
To have more opportunities for everyone, all students.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The last question comes from Maria.
Oh, I thought Allison was going to ask a question.
Yes, you're right. I skipped the accident. Next is Allison, and then Maria will have the last question. Go ahead, Allison.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Allison,
I have a few part questions, so just bear with me, but I'm just wondering how you envision that your role would be in the legislature. Also, how do you tend to push an issue that the governor may not agree with? And also, how do you see to fulfill your needs of your constituents?
Well, I'm the replica, or rather male version of Shirley Chisholm, who's also from Guyanese ancestry from the Caribbean like myself. It's simply this: I'm on boss and on boss. I'm not looking for a career in politics. I'm just trying to use my life's experiences, which have not been very great, but with a mixture, to ensure that anyone looking, sound, and everyone else has the same, path to reach where they want to go. Now, in doing that, and we have to change the system, and I am a voice for the voiceless. I've always been a fighter for the underdog. I'm not looking to build a career. I'm not a professional politician. I'm someone who's had an office open to everyone who came in for free consultations. And I found the legal problems that came to be honest with public assistance, tenants being evicted, people not getting public, food to eat, homelessness, and all these other problems are being criminalized and being targeted and punished unfairly by the criminal justice system. It all leads to the lack of a
30
voice,
seconds.
lack of a presence, and lack of someone to represent them because they don't even speak our language and because for other reasons they cannot speak. So I'm that voice, and hence I've been able to stand up to it. Could be anyone. I've done that. We've had Jennifer Rajkumar come into office, but she has been a total failure. So my thing is that I will take my instructions from the people, whatever their problems are. I'm not afraid to raise them. I'm not looking to be popular. I'm not looking for a job, but I'm looking to have a voice and to make sure that everyone is represented fairly, equitably, and equally with everyone else in our community. That's why I talked about zip codes, because we have the lowest standard of living perhaps in America right here in Richmond Hill, and the greatest segregation of people based on zip code and classes, and that must change, and that starts now with me. I've been doing that for 3 decades. Redistricting, whatever it is, I'm out there. I'm not looking for to gain brownie points for anyone.
Thank you, Albert. Last question is actually back to Maria. Go ahead, Maria.
So this is the last question. Thanks so much for joining us, Mr. Baldeo.
Sorry.
So let's put policy positions aside for a moment and talk about you. You were charged with campaign finance fraud in 2011, found not guilty of those charges, but were convicted of conspiracy to obstruct justice in that case and served 18 months in jail for it. What did you learn from, my question is 2-part. One is, what did you learn from that experience? And secondly, why should we believe that you will conduct yourself honorably in this campaign and if you're elected to public office?
Well, let's put my so-called conviction in the context. I'm running for office, so I'm back on a level playing field. It took me some time to get there. The legal system can really emasculate someone, and that's a classic example. And that's why I told I'm the poster child of where politics. There are hundreds of candidates who run every year. Why is Albert Baldeo the only one who was charged? Because he was the one who was rocking the Queens County organization. He was the one who was bringing change. He was a reformer, and he was against the institution. Why is it that he was targeted by some prosecutor who has immunity? The judge grabbed him on a charge that doesn't have any substance. As it turned out to be, like you said, the campaign finance charges were all dismissed. So how can you obstruct any crime? Think about it logically and legally. That doesn't exist legally or logically in law. But that is the abyss, that is the depth of ignorance or depth of oppression that we have sunk to, whereby you try to grab somebody and something on the way out, and that is the obstruction of justice. Again, how do you obstruct a crime that doesn't exist? And how do you target someone? As all the press reports, check the Daily News, Google my name, you will see, yes, you're right, there's some stigma attached to that. But my fight now for everyone is to show that people can get justice. People must fight the system. The system is always going to be oppressive. The system is not going to be fair. And I've seen the underbelly of the whole criminal justice system. It reeks of partiality, and it needs immediate. And that is what I'm here for. Now, as to conducting myself, I've never even had a parking ticket. And then they grabbed these charges and brought him to me. Preet Bharara, who's known to be a person who wanted to be the governor, by prosecuting any Tom, Dick, and Harry could find and making sure that he's always on the evening news. Well, he probably made me. I was a scapegoat. I have conducted myself always. I was a judge in Guyana before I came here. In this great country, they sought to make me into a criminal. And I'm not the first. I'm not going to be the last. And that is what we need to fight. That is the problem we have in this country. And that is what we need to fight and keep fighting. And I'm the first person to stand up and fight for that. And I've shown I can win those charges, that they're wrong. Many people don't have the opportunity to fight and do that. And right now we have a young man who's doing that right now in Queens County Court. I forgot his name now by some thing. The Indian guy, I forgot his name, but you all know who he is.
Prakash.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Example of what I went through. Prakash Churaman.
You get a minute, Albert, for you. So.
Well, as you can see,
sorry, Dad, Raj.
Yeah, thank you for that. Do we have any follow-up questions that we want to ask before we get to closing remarks?
Raj, I think we're actually ahead of time. You can give them, if you're good with it, 2 minutes for closing. We did that with some of the others.
Okay, so let's do that. We're a little ahead of time. Let's give 2 minutes for your closing remarks. Thank you.
Well, I'm not your typical politician. I'm not a typical person who come before you or many organizations. There's so many of them over the years. I've seen them. They're just window dressing. They just hold these things and just want to go through the motions. They don't really want to invest in someone who can be an agent of change like myself. But that has never kept me from running. And I have come the closest for all South Asians. No one looking or sounding like me has ever been elected to city, state, or federal government. And I've continued to carry that dream and that pilgrimage to make sure that we can have a real representative from the grassroots in office. Many of them, when they go in there, they change because they want to have a career opportunity, they want to make a life out of politics. I don't. I've already made my life. I'm giving back to the community that made me. I'm not afraid to stand up. I owe it to them, and I've always kept my word. For 3 decades now, I've stood there, and many of you have seen me at redistricting. No matter how tough the task is, if you have to confront the governor, if we have to confront an assembly person, or whether we have to go against the grain, I am prepared to do that. I'm not scared. And I believe in working with others like yourself who have the vision of progressive values and to make sure that we can change society and change our communities, our homes, and where we live and get the best use of our tax resources and our tax dollars. I am the person who can do that. I'm not a politician who wants to keep an name like Weapon that was in office since 1965 because I feel it's a monarchy and because of my grandfather, who Adabo, whose father was a congressman. I've always been pushed aside for these people in the past, and that's why I mention their names. We need a new system, new blood. We need a situation where people can understand your views and carry your legislation. You wouldn't get that from those insurgencies because your progressive values like mine are in sync. But they will not listen to us because they see us as their enemies. They do not see us as people having a voice and deserve to be heard. People who have gotten great ideas. People need to change this. People need to keep track of the police, abolish them if necessary to the extent that there must be reforms. They must serve the communities they come from. We must have transportation, such as the Queens Link. We must have proper schools. We must have schools that are not failing our kids, hospitals, healthcare. We must have people who can give us money from the state to bury our dead or to give us a mask. None of the elected officials in this community ever brought a mask or a sanitizer or any sort of help for us during the COVID. They were all missing in action, lost, couldn't find them. We had to fight for ourselves. And that is another reason why I've dedicated myself to public service. So we can have offices and we can have resources and we can have the kinds of things we need to have to make sure we can fight.
Thank you, Mr. Baldeo. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Act and things like these great and wonderful things that we all want.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the time you took out of your night to join us today. And we look forward to hearing more from you.
Just want to note our next candidate is 9 o'clock. So there's actually 3 minutes. The next candidate is David Weprin. He's not here yet. You're on mute, Albert. I just wanted to, we're gonna have a hard stop at 9 if you want to add anything. Is that okay, Raj?
Sure, but let me.
It's a compliment on the work you're doing. It's not always that we are welcomed. Sometimes institutions that are supposed to help us turn their backs on us. They don't give us any funding. They don't really care for us. Just get lost, don't come back. There's always some message that they give that you feel that you're not wanted. You get it loud and clear. What we need is participatory democracy from everyone in this community and in every county, and we can have a better life. I believe that COVID was an example that taught us that we are all equal, but it does not seem as people have gotten that message, especially elected officials. After today, we can always experience and feel the padang and the way we brush aside. Our kids don't really have to get the best education, that we don't have to get health care, that we don't have to live the American dream to its fullest. We're just here as buffer. We're just here as fillers, as a redistricting. We must not have a common district. We must not have a common voice. And that I've seen in my 3 decades, that has not improved. As a matter of fact, it's gotten worse. Like the redistricting, Richmond has always been kept as small, as it has continued to be. And I've seen this and I've experienced this. Now, what do? Do I just pack up
30
and say,
seconds, Albert.
live somewhere in Puerto Rico and go on the beach? No, I've been here, and I've also been returning their flesh, whether it's hate crimes we're fighting, whether it's what sort of racism or what sort of problem we're fighting, institutionalization or government suppression or whatever, police harassment. I will continue to fight. With or without your help, I've always done that. And I have been effective, but I believe I'll be more effective if I get your support. That is why I'm here, to ask for it. And to ask you to join me and to lift me up so I can lift others up, and for your endorsement. With ASAL, we founded a very good labor group that's going to fight nannies and everyone else. And labor is noble, and we continue to fight against a system that has always shut.
Thank you. Wait, we're at time now.
Thank you very much. So should I just
Thank you.
Take care, Albert. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Have
So
a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, our last candidate is here. I'm going to turn it over to the moderator, Heather. Yours, Dimitriadis.
I apologize. All night my computer has worked, and now all of a sudden it got goofy on me. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, Assemblymember Weprin. I don't quite see you on my screen just yet.
Yeah.
We're going to
Can you
have
see me
with
now?
us. I'm sorry?
I'm
Yes, we can see you.
a local iftar event up in Albany at the Albany Museum, State Museum, but I just stepped out and I'm away from everybody else, and I have your undivided attention.
Okay, good evening, Assemblymember Weprin. It sounds like you're having quite a lovely evening. Thank you for taking time to join us. Just to walk you through the format for the next period of time here tonight at our event, you'll have 2 minutes to give us an intro of yourself, and then we will have a series of prepared questions where you'll be able to answer each question with a 90-second response, and if there is a follow-up question, that you will have 30 seconds to respond to the follow-up. Then you will have 1 minute at the end of the questioning to give us a final and closing statement. Ozzy will be our timekeeper for tonight. He will let you know when you're at the 30-second mark, and he will also let you know when you've run over. So unless you have any questions, we'd like to kind of hop to it because I get the feeling you'd like to get back to where you were. Does that sound good to you?
It sounds great.
Excellent. Okay, the floor is yours. 2 minutes are yours.
Thank you very much. My name is David Weprin. I've been a member of the New York State Assembly since February 2010, about a little over 12 years. Prior to that, I was in the New York City Council for 8 years, and I chaired the Finance Committee of the City Council for all of those 8 years. So I've been in elective office for over 20 years. And the reason I went into elective office is, and I had a long private sector career on Wall Street, is that in the public sector, in elective office, I can do the most for the most people and really help people. And that's really why I've been in politics, why my family has been in politics, since my brother and my father served in the Assembly in the seat that I have. I now chair the Corrections Committee. This is actually my 7th year as chair of the Corrections Committee, and I'm very proud of the criminal justice reform that we have done. I've been a leader on parole reform. I have the most progressive parole bill, which is the fair and timely parole. I'm the prime sponsor of, and I'm the co-prime sponsor of the elder parole bill. We've done a lot of things. We've done a lot of educational programs in correctional facilities, and we've done a lot of vocational programs.
30 seconds.
I've worked with the incarcerated population, and 2 of the bills I'm most proud of in the Assembly are the Religious Garb Bill, prohibiting all discrimination in public or private employment for wearing religious garb or facial hair, and the Adoptee Bill of Rights, which allows adult adoptees access to their original birth certificate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move now to our set of prepared questions. Our first question comes this evening from Jonathan. Jonathan, go ahead.
Good evening, Assembly Member. We just celebrated Earth Day. The most recent IPCC report said that the future we fear is not inevitable if we act fast. But New York State has done nothing for the last 3 years. Where do you stand on the Build Public Renewable Act and the All Electric Buildings Act? And making it more local, do you think we should stop the Van Wyck Expressway expansion and instead build more and better public transit alternatives? Do you support funding an EIS for the Queenslink, which would extend the M train south from Rego Park to the Rockaways, roughly parallel to the Van Wyck?
Yes,
Thank you.
and yes. There's a lot we've done, and there's a lot more we can do. I certainly support better public transportation in my district that I represent, both in the city council when I was there for 8 years and now in the assembly. It's not the most accessible to public transportation, and we rely on buses, and buses are our lifeline to public transit, and we need better service, and we need to do more for public service. I've supported bike lanes and other forms of transportation, but there's no question that there's a lot more we can do.
To be clear, so do you support funding an environmental impact statement for the Queenslink project?
I do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Next up, the question comes from Somali King. Somali?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Somali.
What do you think of the recent budget? And in your questionnaire, you said that you supported the Invest in Our New York proposal to tax the rich. Which tax bill did you wish was in the final budget?
Well, we've done a lot on progressive taxation. We've done, a lot on high-end taxation. There's probably more we can do. I'd like to see some more high-end taxation to allow people who can afford it to pay a little bit more. I've supported immigrant rights and basically supporting immigrant services for the undocumented who have been left out of all the pandemic relief. And I've been a big supporter of the aid package to support undocumented immigrants as well.
So just to clarify, any specific bills for taxing the rich, peer-to-peer, if I pronounce it right?
I've been a supporter of, our entire assembly package, our COVID relief package. And when we did a whole COVID package at the beginning of COVID, and we did a whole bunch of high-end taxes, I supported them all.
So nothing additional.
Well, look, I mean, I support the, the CUNY, Invest in CUNY package to try to get free tuition at CUNY. And that's, that proposal is contingent on additional taxation, and I'm still advocating for it. My parents were only able to go to college. They came from poor families. My mother was a Cuban immigrant. She came here, and the only reason they were able to go to college is because CUNY tuition was free.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. Next question actually comes from Ozzy. Ozzy.
Hi, David. Thanks for being here. So we're going to talk about criminal legal system. So, it's been a hot topic. There's been rollbacks in our 2019 landmark bail reform and rollbacks in other hard-fought criminal justice reforms. Do you support those rollbacks? Do you agree with them? Why or why not? In terms of bills, you talked about the parole bill, so I'm not going to ask you about that. Clean slate, I believe it passed in committee today in the Senate. So do you support clean slate? And how would you address concerns of rising crime?
Yeah, I do support clean slate. I was advocating to have it in the budget. Unfortunately, it did not get through the budget. I think the bail reform has been mislabeled as contributing to crime. I don't think there's any link, statistically or otherwise, that have linked any rise in crime to bail reform. The one good thing in the bail reform package, which I did agree with as far as changing bail reform, was to include hate crimes in eligible, bail eligible, because I represent a very diverse immigrant district, and we've had a tremendous rise in hate crimes. I represent probably the largest Sikh and Bangladeshi population, and they've been the biggest victims, or big victims of hate crimes, especially recently with the 3 Sikh individuals that were assaulted, clearly a hate crime, and it was discovered to be a hate crime in Richmond Hill. And that's one of the rollbacks on bail reform that I did support. Overall, I didn't think we needed to do any other rollbacks.
Great. Just to add, so you said hate crimes, right? Is there a specific charge that currently judges don't have the ability to hold folks for, the accused for, that's a hate crime?
I think they have the discretion, and I think the fact that if something can be established to be a hate crime, it makes it easier for judges to use their discretion and to charge individuals more severely, and in some cases, hold them when they wouldn't otherwise. But I think we have to realize, that hate crimes, even if it's not physically assaulting someone, but hate, graffiti, and other things are serious crimes, and it has a tremendous impact, especially on the Muslim community post 9/11. I saw the hate against the Muslim community, and I do represent a significant Muslim population, mostly Bangladeshi and Pakistani, and I'm concerned about that. So I think being able to hold individuals for violent crime involving hate is a rollback that I did support.
And that's in the rollbacks, you're saying, including hate crimes like graffiti as well?
Yeah, well, I didn't support the other rollbacks, but it was a package, and because of the hate crime aspect, I ended up supporting the package.
Got it.
In general, I wasn't looking for rollbacks at all in the bail
Thank you for
reform.
clarifying.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. Next question comes from Anicia Ione. Anicia, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Assemblyman. There
Good
are
evening.
a lot of complaints about homeless humans in public places, and a lot of complaints about how this mayoral administration has been clearing 100 of homeless encampments, but placing very few of those people back in homeless shelters. This doesn't seems like a humane approach or an effective one. How do you think we should address homeless?
Well, we need more permanent affordable housing, and we have to, but more than that, part of the problem with a lot of the homeless population is they need services. A lot of them are suffering from mental illness, from drug addiction, from other social service problems. And I think we need to get them the services, not just to warehouse them in homeless shelters, but to really provide them services. I did not support, the mayor's approach of, getting rid of all the, temporary homeless people with boxes and other things. They need a place to live, but they really need affordable housing and services. They need mental health services, they need drug addiction services, and we really should be concentrating on investing our money in that. That is more important, I think, than just warehousing homeless individuals. We need permanent affordable housing with supportive services. That's really where we should be investing billions of dollars.
Thank you.
Anicia, any follow-up questions?
No.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question comes from Jimena. Jimena, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Assembly Member. Thank you for joining us. Education has become a divisive issue among parent communities throughout the city. And we're hearing and reading more and more about parents' overall frustrations with the entire education system. What is your vision of education equity in these debates? For example, do you favor repealing the Hecht-Calandra Act of 1971, which made admissions to elite specialized high schools depend only on a single high-stakes test? Why or why not? And how do you envision desegregation of the public school system beyond the admissions process?
Yeah, look, I think we need a number of other alternatives other than a one-test situation. I do support not repealing the test because the test has resulted has been something that has worked for a long time, but it's not enough. I think we need to diversify the population. I think we need more specialized high schools. We need more gifted and talented programs. I am a strong supporter of the mayor's recent proposal about expanding gifted and talented program in every school district in New York City. We need more of them. So I don't think the answer is necessarily to repeal and eliminate that specialized high school test, but to supplement it with other criteria. And it should be a holistic approach, not just a one test situation. But I think we should make every effort to diversify student body and to have more specialized high schools in every borough.
Thank
Jimena,
you.
do you have a follow-up?
I guess just how else you envision the desegregation. So that last part of my question.
Yeah, I mean, effort done to recruit and expand high schools and programs and other schools. Look, part of the problem in New York City is, and I see it in my own community, where ethnic groups tend to flock together. For example, I have where I went to high school, Jamaica High School, is in Jamaica Hill. And that area has become very Bangladeshi in that same area that Jamaica Hill, where Jamaica High School is, and directly across the street from Jamaica High School is now the largest mosque in New York City by population, Jamaica Muslim Center. And I think we need to recruit students from all districts and programs, and I think we need to have more gifted and talented programs accessible to everybody.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. Next question is going to come from, and thank you, Jimena, for the question. Next up is Allison with her question. Allison?
Hi, good evening, Assemblyman. Thank you for joining us tonight. I just want to know, how do you think your role as a legislature, and also how do you push an agenda that the governor may not support? And also, how can you give us examples of how you supported your incumbents, agendas?
How I support what agenda?
Well, your incumbents, their needs, your incumbents, when they come to you.
Constituents.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not incumbents, thank you, Ozzy. Constituents.
My constituents agenda.
Yeah.
Look, I have town hall meetings all the time. I have 2 district offices because my district is so diverse and so long and narrow. I'm the first elected official ever to open up a 2nd district office in Richmond Hill. Richmond Hill, especially South Richmond Hill, has a very large Indo-Caribbean, Guyanese, Indian, and South Asian population. It's unique. And I felt it was important to service that community. I opened up a 2nd district office in that community to service that neighborhood in particular. I also have my main office in Richmond Hill, in Fresh Meadows. And I think you just have to constantly be meeting with constituents. I have town halls all the time. And we try to do a good constituency service by meeting with people. And we're very accessible. I go to a lot of events.
30 seconds.
Has been involved in my neighborhood knows, I meet with everybody. I have never refused to have a meeting with any group, whether I agree with their position or not.
Allison, do
Thank
you have a
you.
follow-up?
No, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Allison. Next question is going to come from Maria Kaufer. Maria, the floor is yours.
Hi, Assembly Member. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and welcome. So this last question is, let's put aside policy positions for a moment and talk about you. You've been serving for 10 years, as you said in your intro, in a seat that your brother and your father held before you. That's not unique in Queens, but it does raise issues for a club like ours, devoted to promoting small d democracy, particularly when the district's ethnic composition has changed dramatically. What do you think about this? And how, if at all, have you tried to bring new people into politics?
I do all the time. I mean, if you look at my office, I have the most diverse office, I think, anybody. I think I'm the only, no, I have one other white male in my office, but who's a longtime staff member, Anthony. Many of you may know him. But other than that, I have very diverse staff. I have more women than men. I have more Asians and South Asians. I have African Americans. I have Latinos. I have probably the most diverse staff, and it reflects the diversity of my district. And as I mentioned, I opened up a second district office specifically because the South Asian community and Indo-Caribbean community had unique issues and unique problems to the immigrant community, and we focus on that in our Richmond Hill office.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Maria, do you have any follow-up?
I think we had asked the question, and we do recognize, because I thank you for bringing that up earlier, about how diverse, how you've tried to service your constituents, and we appreciate that. I think the question is more about growing, more grassroots and growing the party base, and not have leaders in the party also reflect the community. And have you done anything in that sphere?
Oh, absolutely. I've been, a huge supporter of inclusion, of all ethnic communities, as I mentioned, my team, my district leaders, state committee people that I've been involved in recruiting are very diverse. And, I think if someone just happens to be a white male, but does a good job representing, his constituents and his community, I don't think I should be discriminated against just because I happen to be a white Jewish male. But at the same time, I've made a major effort to include diversity in my dealings and in my staff and in my outreach.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember. That is all the questions that we had for this evening. So we will turn the floor back over to you for closing statements. You'll have, Ozzie, do we have time for a 2-minute closing statement instead of one?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we're going to double your pleasure. We're going to give you 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Thank you very much. Again, I've been in elective office for over 20 years, 8 years in the city council and 12 and a half years in the assembly. I've worked very hard representing my diverse constituency. I'm very proud of that record, that history, and helping people. Everywhere I go, I run into someone that I've helped over my 20-year plus elective office career, and I'm very proud of that. And again, I've done some landmark legislation. I like to think that I was a key vote on marriage equality. My second year in the assembly when it was not assured in 2011. And I made a key speech on the floor of the assembly in favor of marriage equality. It was right after Dov Hikind, spoke very anti-marriage equality, comparing it to bestiality and some other, horrible things. And I think my speech did make a difference at the time. And I have a solid record in supporting LGBTQ issues. I'm very proud of that. As a result, I'm very proud of my helping the immigrant community and helping the South Asian and Muslim community and communities that have been discriminated against historically for many years. And I'm just very proud of that record. And one of the reasons why I want to be in public service, why I want to be in elective office, is to help people and to make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member, for your time tonight. I think we can all agree that we are all in this together to make a difference, to help change people's lives. Please, thank you for your time tonight. We hope you have a wonderful evening at the event. And again, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
So that's going to conclude our public portion of the meeting.
Right, the public portion of the meeting. I will momentarily turn off the live stream, the YouTube live stream. We are going to go into a members only discussion for the next until 10 o'clock tonight about, the candidates, just discussing among ourselves. And then we will have an online, the ballots will go out, and our voting eligible members will vote whether to endorse or not, whom to endorse and whether or not to endorse at all in each of the races. And just to explain about SQUID is that in order to be eligible actually to vote, you have to not just pay membership dues, but also participate in at least 3 club events. We really wanted to be, and I think you can tell from the membership, just very active, active and organizers. And so we would really welcome more members and, to grow our base. And we appreciate your time. We hope that you enjoyed this evening. If nothing else, we wanted to broadcast the public portion out so that voters can be better informed. And then in terms of what we, the club, can do, we don't believe in paper endorsements. Anyone that we do endorse, we're going to go out there and organize events and do door knocking and other field events. So we do hope that you join us. Please check out squid.org for more information. And there's a link there to join us. And we would be very happy to welcome you as members. And then you can participate in our members only discussions. We do ask for membership that you do affirm our two missions, which is to promote racial and economic justice and grassroots democracy. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to stop the live stream now, and we will see you at our next